The Alden Memorial Library was not merely a construction of wood and mortar. It stood as a complete, self-contained sanctuary. It was perfectly tucked between ivy-covered brick townhouses in the heart of a quiet, intellectual college town. Its massive, carved oak doors opened inward, leading the visitor immediately into a world of hushed reverence taught inside. Towering bookshelves stretched upward, almost touching the high vaulted ceiling. Magnificent stained glass windows caught the late afternoon light, fracturing it into shimmering, jewel-toned colors that fell softly onto the antique Persian rugs. The air itself was a unique compound of soft, complex scents, the dry, faint aroma of aged paper and the quiet, sweet presence of beeswax polish for most people who crossed its threshold. Alden Library was a deeply cherished place of intellectual peace and quiet meditation. But for Emily, on this specific afternoon, it was rapidly becoming a private battleground. Emily was $20 years old. Her shoulder-length auburn hair was aggressively tucked behind her ears, a gesture that revealed the stubborn, determined set of her jaw. She had maintained this rigid routine for 3 consecutive days, all in the pursuit of essential research for her demanding gender studies paper. Her target was a truly rare manuscript, the letters of Eleanor Vane. However, the Vane letters were not available on the open shelves. They were locked tightly in the restricted archive, a hallowed space accessible only with highly specialized, non-negotiable permission. She had asked the assistant twice, patiently, and had been denied twice, each time receiving the same cold, administrative response, incomplete application. Her internal frustration simmered, a slow, toxic burn beneath her carefully controlled exterior. She sat at one of the heavy, polished mahogany reading tables. She wore a plain navy blue sweater and dark jeans, garments that suddenly felt too casual for the formal space. Her fingers drummed a quiet, restless rhythm against the cover of her open notebook. All around her, the patrons performed their quiet rituals. Students scribbled notes with focused concentration. Scholars turned thick pages with a palpable sense of care, and time itself seemed to slow its pace, moving with a deliberate, reverent deference, as if honoring the sheer, colossal weight of all the words contained within the walls. Asterisk, then, her gaze fixed on it, a small handwritten sign, its corners curling slightly affixed to a heavy, velvet rope barring a small side corridor. The message was simple, stark, and absolute. Silence, stillness, respect. Respect, she muttered under her breath, the single word dripping with cynical contempt. It's just paper and ink. Her voice, though deliberately kept low, was loud enough to be a shocking sound in the cathedral of quiet. It echoed in the immense stillness. Several heads, mostly belonging to older scholars, turned slowly in her direction. She ignored them with a defiant shrug. The internal storm was brewing. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "Did you find the Vane letters?" This was the final catalyst. She pulled her phone out of her pocket, tapped open the camera app, and angled the device toward her face, capturing the background of the solemn reading room. She began to whisper rapidly into the lens, the speed of her words conveying her intense frustration. Day 3. Still banned from the archive like I'm some kind of criminal. This place treats books like holy relics. Newsflash, it's $2,024. She did not see Miss Thorne approach, but she felt her presence first, a distinct, cold shift in the air, a sudden, complete alteration of the room's pressure field. Emily looked up from the glowing screen and froze. Miss Thorne stood silently a few feet away, tall and utterly composed. She wore her signature forest green wool dress and a complimentary cream cardigan. Her silver-streaked black hair was pinned neatly in a perfect, severe chignon. Her thin-rimmed glasses caught a sliver of the amber light, but her warm, intelligent brown eyes held absolutely no warmth now. Only quiet, profound disappointment. Rule 3, Miss Thorne said. Her voice was slow, carefully modulated, but possessed a surprising carrying power in the silence. No electronic recording in the Grand Reading Room. Rule 7, she continued without pause. Disrespect for the space or its materials, whether spoken or performed, constitutes a severe breach of patron conduct. Asterisk Emily's cheeks burned scarlet with instant shame. I was just venting, she stammered, scrambling for a defense. It's not like I hurt anyone. You disrespected this place, Miss Thorne replied evenly, her voice a relentless tide. And by extension, you disrespected everyone who finds necessary solace here, including the part of yourself that came here seeking knowledge. She gestured toward a heavy, unmarked oak door marked with a small brass plate. Private study. Come with me. The study room was small and intimate, lined floor to ceiling with serious old leather-bound volumes. It contained only a single mahogany desk, 2 simple chairs, and a tall grandfather clock ticking with a soft, persistent rhythm in the corner. Emily sat down immediately, her arms crossed tightly, her heart pounding a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. She expected the predictable, a formal warning, maybe a temporary suspension of her membership card. Instead, Miss Thorne opened a drawer in the desk and deliberately placed a single age document on the polished wood. You signed this when you became a member, Emily. Her tone was a simple statement of fact. Do you remember clause $12? Emily reluctantly scanned the fine print on the official page. Her eyes finally landed on the text. Patrons who commit willful, repeated, or severe breaches of the Code of Conduct may, at the head librarian's discretion, be subject to corrective discipline, including traditional corporal measure as a final act of accountability and restoration. Her breath hitched in a small, sharp gasp. You can't be serious. Asterisk, I have utilized this specific clause 3 times in $28 years. Miss Thorne stated calmly, her back straight against the high-backed chair. Each time, the patron ultimately understood that some essential lessons require more than just empty words. You signed the agreement, Emily. You broke a sacred trust, not just with me, but with the entire legacy of this library. Emily instinctively wanted to scoff, to argue the absurdity of the rule in the $21 century. But something in Miss Thorne's steady gaze, the clear, deep sorrow that resided beneath the professional steel, stopped her completely. She realized with a sudden, devastating clarity, this was not about power. It was entirely about principle. I didn't think it mattered, Emily whispered, the admission a genuine act of humility. It matters, Miss Thorne said gently, leaning forward slightly. Because precious spaces like this only survive when we actively protect their spiritual core. And today, in your careless frustration, you completely forgot yours. Miss Thorne rose from her seat and walked to a locked, carved cabinet set into the wall. From it, she took out a single familiar object, a smooth, extremely well-worn wooden paddle. It was crafted from dark cherry wood, polished to a reflective sheen by the passage of time and use. It had no sharp edges, no cruel embellishments. It was an instrument of simple, uncompromising correction. 3 swats, she announced, her voice quiet but absolute. Over your jeans. Not for shame, but for remembrance. Emily stood trembling slightly. She turned, her hands gripping the edge of the large, heavy desk for balance. The first swat landed with a firm, sharp flack. It was more shock and surprise than pain, a definitive punctuation mark. The second stung a sudden, sharp, warm rush of sensation. The third left a quiet, vibrating echo in the small room and a deep, resonant echo in her chest. Then, just as abruptly as it began, it was over. Miss Thorne set the paddle quietly back onto the desk. She walked over and pulled Emily into a brief, firm hug. This is not because I don't believe in your potential, she murmured against Emily's ear. It is because I believe you are absolutely capable of doing better. Tears instantly pricked Emily's eyes. They were not from the physical consequence, but from the completely unexpected, powerful kindness that followed it. Emily spent the next hour alone in the private study, completely silent. She meticulously reread every line of the library's code of conduct. The words now felt different, not like bureaucratic rules, but like a vow to a higher standard. She took a small, crisp sheet of paper and wrote a note. I am sorry. I forgot how to be still. I will earn back your trust. She left the note precisely on Miss Thorne's desk, along with a sincere, handwritten offer to volunteer and help reshelve misplaced returns after her studies. The next day, an envelope appeared in her campus mailbox. Inside, Emily found a pristine, stamped archive access pass. Tucked beneath it was a small, formal, handwritten note from Miss Thorne. The Eleanor Vane letters await. Handle them as you would a friend's heart. The simple, profound phrase struck her with the force of revelation. The physical letters were a trust, a living connection to the past, and a responsibility. Asterisk. Weeks later, with the campus now vibrant with the colors of autumn, Emily returned to the Alden Library. She returned not as a frustrated, cynical student, but as an official volunteer. She was wearing her familiar navy blue sweater. But now, pinned to her collar, was a small, official brass pin, Alden Library Steward. In her arms, she carefully carried a cloth-wrapped, significant bundle. Miss Thorne met her at the circulation desk. Wearing the same forest green dress, her eyes possessing the same profound, quiet calm. I found this in my grandmother's attic, Emily explained, carefully unwrapping the bundle. She revealed a first edition of Women in the Public Sphere by Lydia Marcia, rare, fragile volume, and incredibly inscribed by the author herself. She'd want it here, with the legacy. Miss Thorne's lips curved upward into the faintest, most genuine smile Emily had ever seen from her. Your grandmother, she murmured, gently taking the book, had excellent taste. As Emily helped log the precious donation into the official archive ledger, she glanced around the magnificent Grand Reading Room. The light was softer now, somehow filtered and warmer. The silence was deeper, more palpable. And for the very first time, the stillness did not feel oppressive or restrictive. It felt like belonging. Later, walking home in the deepening autumn dusk, she reflected on the journey. Some lessons, she thought, do not come from the pages of books. They come from the strong, unwavering hands that protect those books. And for the first time in her life, she finally understood why some sacred spaces demand that we be absolutely still, so that we can finally truly hear ourselves grow.